Okay, today we're going to make my mom's pistachio dessert. That's Leona's pistachio dessert. And it's a favorite at Christmas for the Pearsons and the Johnsons and anybody that has had it before. So what we want is a cup and a quarter of regular all-purpose flour. And then we're going to warm up a cube of butter. And I warm it up for about 30 seconds in the microwave, and then you can kind of mix the partially softened butter with the liquid. Kind of like to do that before I add it to the flour, but probably doesn't matter too much. And then what we can do is we can take some of the leftover of this and coat the bottom of our 2-quart Pyrex pan. So I'm going to use my handy dandy gloves to kind of get the rest of that out of that container I used to warm that up. And I'm going to coat the bottom of our pan. Now we have the oven heating up to 350 degrees, and we pulled out the cream cheese and the 8-ounce container of Cool Whip and the 8-ounce of cream cheese. We want those to warm up to room temperature, so while we're making the crust, those can be warming up. So now we will shift that over and stir in our softened butter into our crust. I like to use kind of a weak fork that you can bend so it matches the bottom of your pan. I tried doing it with a pastry tool, which I love to use for making an apple pie. I can almost make my pie crust as good as Chris's now. Maybe not quite as good, but just because Grandma showed him how to make the pie crust. She didn't show anybody else, she just showed Chris. So Chris has got the hands-on monopoly on that one. And he just uses a fork. And he just adds enough water until he has the consistency that he wants, and he rolls it out, and it's perfect every time. Okay, so now after our butter is kind of pressed into the flour, so it's a pretty consistent mixture of flour and butter, we're going to put this into our pan. And we're just going to press it. We're going to spread it out across the pan, and then we'll press it down so it's a nice flat surface. And sometimes your hands want to stick to this, other times it's not too bad. I think it matters on your mixture of flour and butter. It seems to be right at 1 1/4 cups of flour kind of does the trick. A lot of times when I'm making the pie crust, I like to put in extra flour and maybe a little bit extra Crisco to have plenty extra, but when I try to do that with the pistachio dessert crust, it's not the same. Okay, so now this is going to cook in a 350 degree oven as soon as it warms up here, so it should be almost there, for 20 minutes. And then we're going to cool this down. We're just going to let it room temperature cool for a few minutes, 10 or 15, and then put it in the fridge for 15 to 20. And then we'll mix up the cream cheese mixture, and then we'll do the pudding and top it with the remainder of the Cool Whip. So we'll be back. So then we'll take our cream cheese mixture and spoon that onto our crust. You have to be kind of careful because that crust ends up being real flaky, and it'll pick up as you're trying to spread it. I think it helps if you put kind of bigger chunks on the corners and on the sides. Then as you're spreading it out, it'll go a little better. And just try to level it out. We're going to put the pudding mix on top of this, so it's not real critical, but I'll try to have it as level as possible. And we'll mix up our pudding mix. Then for the pudding, add 2 boxes of pistachio jello pudding mix with 3 cups of milk, and then mix that until it gets thick, and then just go ahead and spread that over the top of your cream cheese mixture. And just spread it level. Something else you can do to change this recipe up is you can add whatever kind of pudding mix you want, like chocolate, or you can do a half and half. I've done that before. You just kind of push it to the center and have half chocolate, half pistachio, or half and half, whatever flavors you want. I kind of push it to the corners to get it along the edge. And after you got your edge covered completely, then just level it out. Okay, and then we're ready for our whipped cream. We'll put on top of that. And then again, if you kind of stage your topping kind of heavy on the corners, and then another couple globs in between them. And then again, just spread it until it's covered into the edge. Worry about the middle when we get there. First get all the to the edges done. And in Mom's recipe, she said that you can add some coconut, shredded coconut over the top of them. And it's always best if you can let this set in the refrigerator for probably at least 2 hours after you make it. Gives it a little more stability. Does it thicken up a little bit? And you know you covered it good if you don't see any green poking through. Get it nice and leveled out. Good to go. And I don't know if you can see on the edge there, you got the, you can see the crust, the pistachio, and the Cool Whip. Cool. Enjoy, as Mom always says on the end of her recipes.